Hello and welcome to everyone attending us tonight. My name is Vladislav Faraponov. I'm a global community lead with Rubryka, Ukraine's media outlet that is focusing on solution journalism approach. So on behalf of Rubryka, let me say it's a great pleasure to welcome you tonight. And today's discussion is special in several ways. But the first one is that we are continuing to deepen our community, and tonight we'll have really exceptional speakers that are professional, and we are really glad that they are with us today. Today, Rubryka launched also an English language Instagram page, so all of you are welcome to subscribe. And special feature of today's event is that we concluded the first season of our podcast, and more than 20,000 times it was listened by our subscribers, but it was just first season, and the next season basically starts exactly today. We are reshaping our format of events, and we will make several of them in the next month ahead, and we are really encouraging you to stay with us and to participate. We are already preparing the next couple of events. Obviously, we cannot miss today's day as we commemorate the start of the Revolution of Dignity that started exactly 10 years ago. We always say that this revolution it really gave space to the rise of new generation that didn't want to live in the Russian sphere of influence, in the corrupt country, and that is encouraging pro democracy movement and stuff like that. So today we dedicate our event to all those who sacrificed their lives and also paved the way to free Ukraine. We really didn't know about today's news basically when we planned the event, but today, presumably, two MPs have been caught on bribes. So our topic is really evident, like in terms of its relevance. So today we have three wonderful professional speakers who have worked for years in the civil society sector. They are Martina Boguslavets, who is Executive Director of the Institute of Legislative Ideas. We also have Petro Burkovsky, who is Executive Director of Ilko Kucherev Democratic Initiatives Foundation. And we also have Viktor Nestyura, who is Head of Dream Project Office and who is also representing Open Contracting Partnership. So all of you have your specializations, but of course you're welcome to reflect on your colleagues' remarks. So let me turn to Petro Burkovsky first, because we understand that corruption is also about perception. And we have been kind of hearing for years from other countries, from our partners, basically, that we call them nowadays, that given Ukrainian population acknowledged that the corruption is still present in Ukraine. It is interesting to know basically what do sociology polls and internal mood of the society actually tells us about the attitude toward corruption amid the full-scale war.
Good, Vladislav. Thank you for invitation. I'm really honored to speak in such a distinguished among such a distinguished speakers. And I think that you're right saying that on this day it's especially important to pay attention to the social issues like corruption, to political issues like corruption, in order to remember and understand the price which is paid right now by our country, by our people in the struggle against Russia, and that corruption is the issue which can define our future. So, in a way, to start the discussion, I would like to be correct and clear about the definition of the term. Since we're speaking English, not Ukrainian or Portuguese, I refer to Britannica Encyclopedia to define this term. And Britannica gives basically two definitions which are relevant to our current discussion. Is that first of all, the first definition of corruption is that it is a dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people such as government officials or police officers. And second meaning, which is also relevant to our discussion, is that corruption is the act of corrupting someone or something. So basically, it means that when we speak about corruption, we think about behavior of a person, and first of all, a powerful person, the person who has got power, and or the action when somebody is pushed, yes, to be engaged in the corruption. That is important. So, and now I must tell you that although most of the Ukrainians, I think so, they never have read Britannic encyclopedia, but they still share this universal understanding of what the corruption is. And I'm saying, in saying so, I refer to the study, both qualitative and quantitative, which the Democratic Initiatives Foundations conducted before the war. So it's very important. It was in 2018. It's very important when we will shortly will speak about this issue after February 24, 2022. We need to understand the context, the social and historical context in the most recent years. So according to our, and during this study in 2018, we directly asked what people perceive, what they think, what is corruption, what the corruption is. And so for the most citizens, which we asked during the focus groups, so they perceived corruption as illegal actions of civil servant and government officials, right? So this is just the same. So, and they described this phenomenon spontaneously. So they were not pushed or they were not given some options to choose. That's what people say straightly from their heart. And that's, as you see, that's completely overlaps or completely repeats what the encyclopedia or the scientific literature gives us this definition. This is very important. That means that that just underlines that this issue is universal, that very often corruption is associated with the power. And there is another meaning of corruption that was described by the people during the focus group. They said that corruption was referred to the same kind of illegal or dishonest actions of doctors, teachers, etc. And here I just want to say that it's very important in this occasion to define what is power. Because in fact, doctors and teachers also have got power over their clients, although their corruption has individual impact on a certain moment of time, while the corruption of politicians or civil servants has vast social implications and lasts in time. So that's very important to keep in mind these two aspects, how Ukrainians perceive. But for the moment, let's put aside this problem of power and focus on how Ukrainians think about corruption. So again, before the war in 2018, according to the nationwide poll, we gave the people to choose between three statements. So first statement is that bribes are immoral phenomenon, unacceptable anywhere, anytime. So in 2018, 49% of the respondents said and agreed with this statement, that it's an immoral to give bribes and that they are unacceptable. Next, the bribes are negative phenomenon, but in some cases they can be justified. So that's an adaptive attitude toward corruption, and it was shared in 2018 by 35% all over the country. And finally, that bribes are a normal way to solve problems quickly and effectively. So this statement, only 9% of Ukrainians in 2018 agreed with this statement. And here is, we need to understand why it's happening, because I think it hasn't changed with the time. So the reason is that what was noticed by us in 2018 and also by our colleague sociologists is that most citizens believe that corruption cannot be overcome by the government efforts because they did not have trust in the actions of authorities. So there is a very interesting and very straightforward connection between how people perceive corruption and between the trust of the people toward the state or social institutions. The lower is the trust, the higher is the sense among citizens that the corruption cannot be overcome and that they cannot rely on the state and on the relevant law enforcement bodies that they will fight with corruption. So again, if in Ukraine before the war we have got a generally negative attitude toward all branches of government and low trust in them, that would mean that people think that the same institutions were corrupt.
Let me turn to Martina because your organization is really active in terms of kind of monitoring the anti-corruption efforts and the results, which is more important. So, kind of your opinion and analysis are also very important. What can you tell us about what does Ukrainian civil society in general do as a domestic and international watchdog to help actually both monitor and also combat the issue of corruption?
Yeah, Vladislav, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me today, and big pleasure for me to be here today. I also would like to thank for our previous speaker, distinguished one, Petro, that he reminded us very big price that we are paying every single day for having this awful price, for having this opportunity to do all these anti-corruption reforms and anti-corruption matters regarding future reconstruction process and everything. Well, just to start, I would like to say that we're working as anti-corruption analytical think tank, and before the 24th of February, we have been working as anti-corruption expertise think tank, and after the Revolution of Dignity, after the 2014, we have been working on anti-corruption expertise of draft laws. And obviously, when the big full-scale invasion happened, we understood that it's a big opportunity for us to work on all of those procedures that are going to form the legislation framework and all of the procedures regarding the allocation of money, how they are spent, how they are allocated to local authorities and everything. So just to start answering your question, I would like to start from that. It's very important to form the coalitions. It's very important to work in teams, and it's very important not to work on your own. So basically, by that, I mean, I would like also to say a few words about the Rise Coalition of Ukraine, that the idea of forming that happened from Victor Nestulia, also Transparency International, Ukrainian Rubryka, and Olesy Dorgan, and they just created such a Rise Coalition just 1 year ago or something. So we just tried to, within that coalition, we tried not to even control or monitoring, how you said, to do the watchdog monitoring for the government, for the ministry responsible for restoration, for the agency. Within this Rise Coalition, it happened to us that we started to work like experts from civil society, like totally pro bono lawyers for the Ministry for Restoration, for the agency, for local authorities, trying to help them to create all this legislation framework of the reconstruction. So that's a big opportunity to all of the NGOs working on the topic of transparency of the recovery, is to join such coalitions and to form their own coalitions, like the Rise Coalition happened 1 year ago. It's very important. The another thing, I think it's very important to mention the possibility to become the official partners of the public authorities that are responsible for reconstruction, and to become the members of integrity councils or integrity working group. Just they are working within the Agency for Restoration, and I'm the member of such integrity council, and the working group responsible for the anti-corruption expertise, anti-corruption legislative work within the Ministry for Restoration, and that is working on anti-corruption program So we also became ally also has become the member of such working group. So it's not only always about the watchdogging, and it's not always about the critics, but just try to do non-publicly work firstly, and then start to criticize the public authorities that started all this huge thing regarding the reconstruction process. Well, I think we should also mention very important case that happened just today. So, and I will try to shortly explain why it's very important to become not only a watchdog monitor and also a partner. So, I think everybody here know that what has happened today. So it's a case of an unsuccessful attempt to influence the money of the fund for the liquidation of the consequences of anti-aggression. And what has happened? The SAPO and NABU served a notice of suspicion to the member of parliament, and he's from the party, in English it says servant of the people party. It's obviously Sluha Narodu party, presidential one, Andriy Odarchenko. And this MP tried to bribe the head of the Agency for Restoration, Mustafa Nayem, and the head of the Vice Minister for Restoration, Alexander Kubrakov. So this is an attempt by the MP to influence the allocation of funds from this liquidation fund to repair his own state biotechnology university. And talking his own, I mean he was a rector, previous rector of this university. He used to be a rector, and how he influenced like the MP. So the amount of the bribe was nearby something $50,000. And the first tranche after the decision of the interagency group in Bitcoin, it was like $10,000 was transferred by the SMP to the top official on his electronic wallet. And the amount of money allocated from the liquidation fund for the university's repairs is nearby 116 million hryvnias. So obviously we understand that everything failed, and Mustafa and Alexander Kubrakov they did a big statement on that, and after that, during all of those process today, the SAP and NABU served a notice of suspicion to this MP. But I would like to figure out the reasons, I would say, why the SIM didn't work. So frankly speaking, I think it's all about the political will, of the head of the agency, obviously about the head of the agency, Mustafa Nayem. So the integrity and just a personal factor, how to call that rightly, I call that a personal factor of the head of the agency, Mustafa Nayem, who, when attempting to be bribed, he began the cooperation with the anti-corruption agencies NABU and SAPA. And if it is he who is, just the thing I would like to explain, so it is he who is implementing anti-corruption measures in the agency. And frankly speaking, I think all of the things that have happened today is only because of his political will to do that. So he is not under legislative, obviously he worked like a whistleblower, but that's why we have his political will to do that. That's why all of that happened. So the another thing is very important, that talking about this fund, working within the RISE coalition on the legal framework of the reconstruction, we have been working a full year to do the procedures from this fund more transparent and accountable. So we managed to do the methodology of prioritization. The team of the Transparency International of Ukraine did that, and we managed to broadcast all of their meetings. We managed to just to open the possibility for local authorities to submit their own application for reconstruction through that fund. And obviously, just also regarding to the political will, of the Deputy Minister for Restoration, Alexandra Azarkina, we managed to write all of those procedures more transparent and more accountable. So that's why this MP, he asked to allocate the money from this transparent fund, and plus the political will of Mustafa Nayem, all of that played the game, and that's why all of that, I mean, the whistleblowing process happened. So that's why it's very important for us as a civil society to do the integrity checks of the people that are going to be the next leaders, the next, I mean, the management of the agency, of the all of the authorities that will be created. Somehow all that will be responsible for reconstruction, because we understand, and talking about the today's case, we understand that the political will and the integrity of the people that are on their higher level, top level positions that are responsible for reconstruction is the criteria number one to do the all of these investigations. And it's much easier for, obviously, for the anti-corruption bodies like National Anti-Corruption Bureau and specialized anti-corruption prosecutor office to work with those people. So the last but not the least forms of the civil society that could do something to make all this happen is not only a legal, expective legal framework drafting that what we have did with the procedures of the fund for the liquidation of consequences of Russian aggression. It's not only about becoming the official members of Integrity Council that work within the agency and do the integrity checks of the people that are going to be hired on these positions, just to be the management. What the last thing that we did the integrity checks within this integrity council, within the agency. We did the integrity checks of the people that are going to go through the competitions and to become and are going to become the management of these regional offices responsible for restoration. So the last but not the least, the thing to show the priorities for the reconstruction and to do the official priorities and to do the procedures and the whole process of the construction more transparent and obviously digitalized. So we have Victor Nestulia here today with us, and I'm pretty sure he will definitely will go through details of the digitalization of the future reconstruction process. But I mean, today's case shows us that we definitely need more information to be closed out, and just everybody and just to work, everything should work within the principle everybody sees everything. So the digitalization process is about that. And obviously we could not do as watchdog monitoring all of the procurements with, in every single project that is going to be the part of the big reconstruction process. So yeah, but it's something within this fund for liquidation the consequences of Russian aggression. But come on, I mean, there was like hundreds of projects, hundreds of objects that need to be repaired, that need to be restored. So frankly speaking, I think that the digitalization process is the key. Obviously, I totally believe in anti-corruption monitoring and watchdogging, in watchdogging the procurement, in watchdogging all of the doing the integrity checks for this management and everything, and with the cooperation as from our side as civil society watchdogs with NABO and SAPO. But I mean, we will just face a big problem without the digitalization of all of the reconstruction system. So I think I'll start here as just answering your first question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Martina, for really comprehensive reply as well. So my pleasure to turn to Victor, who is head of the Dream Project. Can you tell our audience that is abroad in particular, what is the Dream system about in general, and actually what issues does it really help to simplify?
Thanks, Vladislav, for your question and opportunity to share what we do. But I would like to start with a statement that Ukraine is not a corrupt country. Ukraine is a country that fights corruption and fights corruption, I would say, very well, maybe slowly but steadily. And over the last 10 years, we made a huge progress comparing to what we have in 2013, before the Revolution of Dignity, and what we have now with comprehensive integrity infrastructure, including National Anti-Corruption Bureau, National Agency on Corruption Prevention, Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, Anti-Corruption Court, and lots of other additional institutions that are doing their work. And from even today's news, we see that they're doing their work pretty well. And by the way, I want to, not of course to diminish today's news from National Anti-Corruption Bureau, but we also had a case with Dmytro Sininchenko, right? A couple of years ago, when there was a huge celebration of corruption prevention, and then we saw another case of National Anti-Corruption Bureau investigating him. So, of course, not to want to make any parallels, but it's great that institutions are working. And over last years, we see a regular progress on how situation with anti-corruption is improving. It is improving because of many reasons. And of course, I believe that one of the core pillar of this change is Ukrainian civil society and the new way of how Ukrainian civil society works and cooperates with Ukrainian government, but also international partners. This was also introduced, I believe, by Revolution of Dignity. And I was lucky to participate in several reforms, including Prozoro sale, e-health, and so on, that had some role in anti-corruption. And these reforms evolved from Maidan. So basically, it started as volunteer initiatives, later supported by government, becoming a huge transformation. So Prozoro now, public procurement system, the most transparent public procurement system in the world. And I'm working in public procurement sphere in more than 50 countries, and I can admit that there is no more transparent public procurement system in the world than Ukraine, starting from procurement planning to contract implementation. Try to find any other countries that will publish structured data and information about all bids, documents submitted by those bidders, actual contract that is signed, all amendments to that contract, actual payments made within every contracts in real time. Let's remember our COVID contracts, where every Ukrainian knew about every hryvnia spent for COVID expenditures within 24 hours. And check, for example, UK COVID contracts, where they even now investigate, fast lanes with delay with publication of information for more than 200 days. But of course, some of the reforms we introduced significantly increased transparency. They increased opportunities to investigate. They increased opportunities for civil society, for media to do their work well. And we see recent scandals that change situation in the Ministry of Defense, for example, with Nashi Groshi and etc. But transparency, it's a first foundation for future accountability and integrity. Transparency, of course, itself doesn't solve situation with corruption, but it's an integral part of anti-corruption fight. Ukraine, after the Revolution of Dignity, is becoming more and more transparent in every field. Of course, situation like the full-scale invasion temporarily changed the situation, and we had a small, let's say, gap, or a relatively short gap with reduction of certain information. But we see that we are coming back to complete transparency in many fields, including public procurement, including assets declaration, including beneficiary owners, and so on and so forth. Again, thanks to Ukrainian civil society and international partners, of course, but also to many governmental partners who listen to us and who hear us. But slowly coming to dream. Sorry for taking more time before opening it, because it's very important to understand that after the revolution of government, Ukraine started a new way of collaboration. It was what Martina mentioned, when civil society established a culture of, let's say, co-governance, where civil society was identifying the problem and was ready to work hand in hand with government to solve that problem. That's how Prozoro appeared, Prozoro sale, national anti-corruption infrastructure, and so on. And that's how we approached DREAM. So basically, DREAM, a digital restoration ecosystem for accountable management, was initiated jointly by the Ministry for Restoration and civil society coalition Rise Ukraine, that sit together with the government of Ukraine, analyzing the huge challenge that Ukraine is facing. Basically, right now, more than 200,000 objects that are completely damaged or destroyed. And understanding that the need for the restoration is, as of February 2023, was more than $411 billion, according to Rapid Damages and Needs Assessment report by World Bank. There is no way how, like any country, even the most developed country with highest standards of integrity, there is no way how anyone could properly plan and implement such a huge project without, any challenges. So that's how Ukrainian government and Ukrainian civil society came up with the concept of end-to-end digital transformation of the recovery process, how we can ensure complete transparency and smart decision-making that is data-driven and completely accountable to the whole world, starting from damages assessment to project commissioning, going through all steps of basically recovery project implementation, through planning and prioritization, preparation of those projects, filling so-called bank of project or pipeline, prioritizing that pipeline, and understanding who can pay for what, which funding sources, including municipal budget, state budget, but also international partners, working with procurement planning and procurement conduction, understanding who are those counterparts and their beneficiary owners behind companies who earn money, tracking actual delivery of construction progress, seeing what's happening on the construction site, and finally commissioning those objects so we can guarantee that everything that we wanted to achieve from the very beginning is actually delivered. So that's was designed, as an end-to-end digital cycle. And luckily, Ukraine as a champion in digitalization, having lots of great digital tools, including registry for damaged and destroyed property, single electronic system in construction that is used to develop design documentation, provide permission to start construction and so on. Prozoro for public procurement, beneficiary owners registry, treasury transaction system. So basically, we can now see, even during the war, all treasury transactions in real time, starting from 1 cent. It's like radical transparency, even during the martial law time. So DREAM as an ecosystem integrates all those various digital solutions and streamlines the process. So eventually we can see all the pieces of the whole cycle under one umbrella. And for either Ukrainian citizen or international taxpayer who contributes to Ukrainian reconstruction from their taxes, they don't have to think how their money are spent. They can simply enter DREAM project profile and see how this project was planned, how it was designed, how it was appraised, how it meets, for example, sustainability requirements, how it was procured, and what's happening on the construction site. So eventually, this will help us to establish a single pipeline and guarantee that it's properly prioritized, that it has civil society opinion on it, that it's supported by community, and it's properly implemented. And just quickly covering some of the key components of DREAM, because it's important to understand that DREAM, on one hand, is developed by the central government to support the recovery process and its transparency. But the key user of DREAM is local community. So DREAM provides every local community in Ukraine to register its investment profile, to customize it like LinkedIn page, sharing information, who is your contact person responsible for investment and recovery projects in your local community, providing some additional characteristics like population, number of IDPs, budget, incomes, expenditures, credit savings, and so on. but also presenting your investment project pipeline. So which recovery project your community needs to develop to tackle all the challenges that appeared because of the war. And this pipeline is created based on international financial institutions' guidelines on project preparation. So basically in DREAM, together with the government, we are embedding global best practices into the flow of preparing the project and presenting the project. So we can be sure that everything that comes in the end of this process is understandable for international partners, and they can take this data and use it for their appraisal and so on. Of course, everything that is happening inside of the system, follows everyone sees everything principle. Like Prozoro, we can see every bit of information and documents that is used for project initiation, project development, project approval, and then every other step of construction. Of course, we understand that transparency, as I mentioned before, doesn't solve all the issues, but it significantly decreases the risk and increases opportunity for civil society, investigative media, investigative authorities to perform their function better. And with information about project pipeline and Ukrainian needs, we are also working on structuring information about international assistance. We want to better coordinate all the flows that are channeling to Ukrainian recovery and basically help communities to use DREAM as a single window of information for the opportunities to raise money for their projects. Because right now, how every local community in Ukraine finds out about potential funding source for their project, either through social media or through some conference where they were lucky to hear about new opportunity, or through some news. We are slowly, together with the ministry, structuring this information in DREAM, and eventually once community submits a project, for example, about education in Sumy region, system automatically suggests that, hello, there are 3 funding sources that potentially could support your project. So these are terms and conditions, eligibility and qualification criteria, and ways to apply for funding for this donor. So we are simplifying the way on how communities can know about potential funding. And of course, by meeting Ukrainian demand with international supply, we are providing a powerful tool for international community, for multi-agency donor coordination platform, to better understand what is the need and how it is covered, where is the gap, and how we can support recovery better, but also be sure that every penny, pound, hryvnia, euro, etc., contributed to Ukraine is properly allocated and is used accountably. What I mentioned before, DREAM introduced accountability for any taxpayer in the world. You can open, right now we provide this for example, Lithuania and Estonia. You can open DREAM web portal and see 2 projects funded by Lithuania. You can track how those projects were implemented, all approvals, decisions, budgets, what was happening on the construction site, and eventual outcome of their work. Of course, throughout the whole process, we collect lots of structured data, and we provide this data in a way of course, first of all, open data itself, raw data for civic tech, etc., but also in a way of user-friendly dashboards. So with a few clicks, you can identify projects that are available in your community, and so on. And lastly, for us, it's very important to make sure that Ukrainian recovery is people-centered, that citizens can contribute to planning, can contribute to prioritization, can contribute to project selection, and also monitoring of what's happening. We are introducing e-democracy tools at every step, either through integration with DIA or through developing additional functionality together with Central for Innovation Development. We are finalizing the methodology and we'll start the development early in 2024. But for us, it's important that DREAM could be used as a tool to include citizens, especially those who are temporarily displaced and, for example, sitting abroad, that might be interested in how their community is developing, what are their needs, how they can help community to raise funds for the recovery, and so on and so forth. And of course, for those who listen to the podcast, it's hard to check, but you can go to the portal itself, dream.gov.ua, and there is an analytics section on that portal. And on bi.dream.gov.ua, you can already check all those dashboards with a few clicks. You can quickly identify, for example, projects that were supported from the Fund for Liquidation for Russian Aggression Consequences, right? And you can see the list. You can see what is the state of that project, what's happening now on the construction side, and so on. Of course, it's not yet fully implemented. We are still on an experimental mode. We are now working on the law to make sure that every community is obliged to use Dream, because similarly to Prozoro, I remember when we started Prozoro back in 2015, there were some great volunteers. For example, I don't know, Ministry of Defense back then, they were using Prozoro, and there were different stages of Ministry of Defense. Now we see that Ministry of Defense is again coming to transparent procurement. But there were great volunteers who were using Prozoro proactively for any kind of procurement, even before the law obliged them. And similarly now, we see that there are some communities who are using Dream and report everything. For example, Trostianets, they're doing it well. And we have more and more communities who proactively use Dream to show that they're transparent, that they don't afraid anything, and they're ready to be open for the whole world. But there are also someone who, first of all, is not willing to use Dream at this stage, or is using it just formally, just registering in the system and submitting basic information like name of the project, and that's it. And of course, for such situation, we need a law that will oblige them to use the Dream and to report everything at every step. But luckily, we have full political support from the government of Ukraine. We have full support from at least 3 parliamentary committees. We work closely with head of anti-corruption committee, head of budget committee, and head of committee for regional development. So we don't have any doubts that the law will be adopted, and in 2024 we'll be able to use Dream similarly like we use Prozoro now to track every recovery project at every step of its development. Sorry for taking a little bit longer, and happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely, it's really important for our audience to understand. So let me turn for a couple of minutes, I hope so, to Petro, because you mentioned the poll that your organization has conducted, and it also has caused basically quite a discussion in Ukraine. You yourself gave like a lot of interest about it, and I would like to invite you to just kind of briefly summarize it, and explain that the question in the poll was that the president is responsible for corruption, and basically you've touched upon this, but actually, can you explain to our audience why it is the case, and basically what does it mean for Ukrainian future in month ahead, while there talks about possible elections, both to the parliament and for the president, are held, and is it okay during the war? Is it normal, or it should be changed, and this perception is a bit not so relevant? Basically, what do you see?
Thank you for the question. That was the much ado about nothing, when the governmental officials reacted in a very, let's say, unintelligent manner to the figures, because I think they did not like the reflection in the mirror. the reflection of their actions in the mirror. And here I would like to disagree strongly with Mr. Victor Nestura, who said that there are huge successes in fighting corruption. Mr. Nestura, if we had these huge successes, there will be not 34% of the people who consider that corruption is a bigger threat than the new Russian offensive. There will be just a 3% possibly. So that would show that that was a successes. However, if we speak about the attitudes of the people, look, these are not new ones. In 2015, there was an open question which asks, so whom do you consider responsible for the fighting corruption in Ukraine? And 62% of respondents, I remind you, that was the March 2015, and they said that the president. So in August 2018, like 3 years later, we repeated the same question, and guess what was the figure? It was 63. So the point is here that since the beginning of independence, since 1991, which I remember very well, president in Ukraine is a top figure. It's not a part of the executive, neither part of the legislative branch of the power, but it has the powers to influence decision-making in the country. He can block laws. He can initiate laws, right? And in 2019, president was the one who not only won the elections in a landslide with the 73% of the people who voted for him, but also he was able to put in the parliament his party as a total majority. So, and this party was formed by him personally. So since August 2019, we have a unique situation in Ukraine when both branches of the power, apart from the president, they are formed and they are ruled from the one center of power, and this is the president and his office. So therefore, anything that happens in the country in the sphere of legislation or in the sphere of executive power is directly connected and linked to what the president's policies are. And moreover, if we remember the election campaign of 2019, the current president came to power under the promises to break the backbone of corruption in the country. And if we look back, so he is in power, let's say, completely since August 2019, when the majority was formed, the pro-presidential majority was formed in the parliament. So since August 2019, that was the president who ruled the country. And in December 2019, the trust toward him was more than 60%. In December 2021, the balance of trust towards him was minus 20%. So between August 2019 to December 2021, the current president completely failed if we speak about the policies. However, everything has changed since February 2022. The president has become a symbol, and for the good reason, of the national resistance. However, what we showed by our poll, and that was not our will, that was will of the people who participated in the poll. That was a reflection of public opinion, that people are urgently expect and demand from the president to take strong measures against corruption in this country. So there is still a hope, there is still expectation, but for the successes to come, it's a long way.
Okay, thank you, Petro. And obviously, I will give the floor to Victor and then to Martina as well.
Yeah, just want to reflect on the comment that I believe myself that it's a fact that Ukraine is making a huge progress in anti-corruption fight because of all the institutional frameworks and changes in legislative field, deregulation, digitalization, those reforms that significantly reduce the opportunity for corruption. Of course, it doesn't mean that we don't have corruption. It is there, but also I don't want to misuse the concept of perception and actual corruption, because when you have a complete transparency, when you have freedom of speech, and when all investigative media, civil society are on a daily basis using, for example, completely transparent procurement system, Prozoro, to identify violation and misuse of public funds, freely speaking about it and raising those cases to the toppest media, etc., of course, perception would be lowering. For example, according to the Corruption Perception Index, Ukraine has 33 points and Belarus has 39 points. So Belarus is less corrupt than Ukraine. I think that it's not exactly true, because there is dictatorship, right? It's just a corrupt regime. But the fact that you cannot really write about it, media cannot share the information about it, and so on, perception is better. But again, my point here is I don't have any doubts that we are on the right track to fight corruption and that we are making huge progress. Maybe this progress is slower than we would expect. That this is an evolution. Revolution in anti-corruption, unfortunately, is not happening. And we have to evolutionarily build our institutions, change our culture, including business culture, and promote business integrity across small, medium enterprises and large sector, and so on. And of course, we need to work with perception as well, because I believe that in lots of surveys, when we ask people what is the biggest problem, they would say corruption. But many of them, if you ask it, did you witness corruption yourself? Majority of them will say no, because there is like top level corruption. Everyone is speaking about parliamentarians, government, etc. But petty corruption is reducing, and so on. And yeah, I believe that Martina also wants to contribute.
Yes, Martina, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, I'm a lawyer, so that's why I always like to operate with facts. I totally agree that all of the things that Petro has told us today is mostly about the perception. And well, I would like just to use the parallel and to do use the comparing method, like just let's compare the Ukraine now and let's compare the Ukraine in 2014. So, today's Zoom, like everything that is happening just right in this minute, so we're just recording that podcast on November 21, and it's the 10th anniversary of the beginning of the Maidan. And I think no one that is present here will argue that Ukraine 10 years ago and Ukraine now are totally different countries. So we managed to build our own anti-corruption infrastructure, to finally to do the National Anti-Corruption Agency of Preventing Corruption, and ACP, NABO, SAPO, highest anti-corruption court totally independent from the presidential office through these open competitions with the international partners within this competition commissions and everything. So it's obvious thing that we did a big change just comparing to what have been happening just 10 years ago. That's the first thing. And about the facts, what I really like is when a lot of foreigners or just European or just West top officials, they asked us as a civil society representatives how we evaluate what is our own assess of the corruption index, corruption perception in Ukraine, etc. So I always give them these official international ratings. So what I really like, I think everybody here understand that they are totally independent. And what I really like that, for example, the Greco It's a European, we know what Greco is, it's like a European authority, I mean the commission that is responsible for anti-corruption or anti-corruption work, and they removed us finally from the backlist of the states that did the efforts, and they call it globally unsatisfactory. So they totally removed us from that blacklist, and we implemented 15 out of 31 recommendations satisfactory, and 9 particularly implemented, and 7 didn't implement it at all. But I mean, we're already not in the blacklist that we have been just dozens of years before. That's the first thing. The another one, in 2022, Ukraine ranked, just listen to these numbers, we ranked 116 country out of 180 countries served in Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. And back in 2012, Ukraine ranked 144th place. I mean, we managed to move like 20 through this 20 place ranking from the Transparency International through this Transparency Corruption Perception Index. Also in 2022, Ukraine took the second place in the open data maturity ranking among the 35 countries of the world. That's because of the Prozoro, that's because of the DIA. So that's why we are always asking for this international support and asking for all those money and financial support and everything. That's why we are under the glass. So everybody sees what's happening in Ukraine. And I mean, it's obvious for everybody that European countries, they still have their own corruption cases and corruption scandals and everything, but they are not under this, how to call that, I mean, the glass that is always under the control of international partners, of civil society monitoring and everything. So it's like, yeah, a short answer before we'll just end up with this whole theme of corruption perception and everything. Thank
you. Absolutely. Thank you, Martina. I will have just basically the last question to three of you, and it will be the question from the audience. But also, if you have something more to say, you are absolutely welcome. And we used to operate this term of corruption, which we are talking about today. And we are also kind of used to operate the term of basically kind of homework in terms of corruption. And the question that I would like you to answer is what actions are needed in Ukraine to eliminate corruption, starting from the very top. And I would just like everyone answer kind of this question really brief, but again, if you have something more to say, you're welcome, and then we will finish our today's discussion, which is quite hot, and we really appreciate it. Absolutely, Victor. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I can start. I believe that we have, pretty good achievements, as I said before, good integrity infrastructure, all those institutions. So first of all, we have to continue to strengthen those institutions and protect them, making sure that they're really independent. What we saw, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday, right? Parliamentarians voted for additional number of detectives for National Anti-Corruption Bureau. There were recent discussions about independence of specialized anti-corruption prosecutor's office. So we just need to continue strengthening those institutions and providing their independence. Second, we have state anti-corruption strategy and roadmap, right? There are lots of reforms that needs to be implemented to fight corruption. We just need to, again, slowly and steadily implement all those items mentioned in the strategy. It's a very well developed strategy that will significantly reduce lots of corruption risks and opportunities for corruption if properly implemented. And luckily, we have great cooperation between National Agency on Corruption Prevention, civil society, government of Ukraine, that helps to basically track its implementation and support with advocacy where it is needed. Third, we need to continue our work on deregulation and digitalization. So simplifying some opportunities and areas for business, and removing some of the contact points between Ukrainian citizens, Ukrainian businesses with governments through digital solutions. So these are three steps that are needed from government. And of course, we need to keep the space for our vibrant civil society. I believe that there is no way how Ukrainian civil society can allow us to step back from the course Ukraine has taken. The most important thing right now is to win the war. And even during fighting the war, we see that we continue our fight against corruption. So integrity infrastructure, anti-corruption strategy and roadmap, deregulation and digitalization, plus openness and cooperation between Ukrainian government and civil society, promoting open government principles and practices. Thanks.
Thank you, Victor. Martina, Petro, you're also welcome.
No minds if Petro.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Good. Let me tell you that as in any difficult policy problem, we have to deal with three fields. It's a prevention, which is the most complex one, a mitigation, like a middle way, and the punishment, which is the last, but even only with the consequences. So let's start from the punishment, which is also very problematic in Ukraine. So recently we've heard an idea to implement or introduce the lifelong sentences for corruption, which is a bit stupid, because it's not the severity of the punishment, but inescapability out of this. And they have a problem with that. If Martina before spoke about the facts as a lawyer, and the facts are on the ground that neither Igor Kolomoisky, who stole $5.5 billion from the Ukrainian, from his own, from the people who put money into his bank, right? Neither Konstantin Zhivago, who is accused of a big-scale corruption, he is escaped and right now in France. And many other people since 2014 and even since the full-scale invasion, they managed to escape from the punishment. So that shows that with the punishment, we have trouble here in Ukraine. Mitigation, that's a mid-level. I agree that we have on this level to mitigate. It means that we can threaten or introduce a high risk, of punishment for those who decided to engage in the corruption, and that is the function of the anti-corruption bodies like National Agency on Corruption Prevention, like National Anti-Corruption Bureau, who can investigate, and that means that we can only mitigate, not to completely constrain or deny the access to law violation to the possible perpetrators, but only try to prevent something, to mitigate the damages done by the corruption. Still, the most complex issue is, of course, the prevention, and it lies beyond the field of digitalization or anti-corruption bodies or judicial reform. That accounts for three things. First of all, it's very simple, the tax system. The tax system is Ukraine is heavy and with complex administration. To simplify, to change the tax system, to reduce taxes basically means that the business would be more free to work, and less government will be present in Ukraine. And secondly, this is the most complex part, is the education. So if in beginning from the family education and in the school, So if the pupils, if the students see the opportunity to cheat, so well, this habit will last for the life. So they will try to cheat in everything. So if they see that cheaters get out with it, if they see that cheaters are becoming successful people, in this, then the person learns that cheating is not bad, that actually it can be rewarded in many aspects, and that's the roots of the corruption. So starting from the family, from the education, from the socialization of the person is the most complex way to prevent the corruption. For developed countries like Sweden or Switzerland, it took centuries and hundreds of hanged and executed people to educate people that cheating is not good, that actually it can be punished. So now we have to go through this process just in years, not in the centuries. We do not have this, such a luxury to do it. And finally, I don't want to take your time, but I would advise you to read one of the latest books written by Christopher Berry D. He's a criminologist, and it's talking with psychopaths and savages, the journey into the evil mind. It describes how people can do evil things and how to avoid it. And there are really good prevention measures, including people who sociopaths or psychopaths who use their position in the power or in business structures to rip off the society. So this is the scientific also method to prevent from these people to enter the state or business institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petro and Martina.
The boys already told everything. I'll just add as 3 steps from me as a civil society representative. The only one thing I would like to add, I'm totally agree with Petro that prevention is really important. Well, that's the most important thing. And I totally agree with what already Victor has said, that the anti-corruption strategy is very slow, but it's very important instrument that should be it should be not only monitored, not only watchdogged, but also we as a civil society should help the public authorities that are responsible for basically doing this anti-corruption strategy, to help them to do all of the steps. It's like the big strategy that consists 1,700, if I'm not mistaken, anti-corruption measures. Just for example, one of them is the head of the national police, that should go through the open competition process, and the Minister for Internal Affairs is responsible for creating such a law. So it's nothing else like a totally anti-corruption measure, obviously, to do the competition for the law enforcement bodies that would obviously will take a big part in investigating of all of these corruption crimes. And what we already know, that 90% of the corruption crimes regarding corruption crimes that regarding not only reconstruction but just the misuse of the power of the public officials and everything. So not the National Anti-Corruption Bureau or not the SAPA investigate that, but the General Prosecutor Office and the National Police are the main subjects that are responsible for reconstruction. So yeah, obviously the anti-corruption strategy, it's the most important prevention mechanism, if I can say so. The another one, the second one, it sounds not so cool, but I mean the European partners and obviously Washington, they did almost everything instead of us. So they did those recommendations, just talking about this USA letter that we all of us read in Ukrainska Pravda 1 month ago, that we have only 18 months to do real reforms, just starting from the accounting chamber and the competition for the NACP, for the head of the NACP, and just ending with a state audit service agency to do the real anti-corruption reform within that public authority that, as we already understand, will be the major authorities that is going to do the internal Ukrainian audit of all of those funds, and is the only one that is had the official power to do the audit of all of the local budgets, what also is very important regarding the reconstruction. So what we should do, which as a civil society, we should do the shadow reports regarding how the Ukrainian government faces and I mean, really do the homework of all of those recommendations from the EU that we just had 1 week ago, and the Washington 18, we call that 18 months recommendations to do all of these anti-corruption reforms. And we all understand it's like the last bell for Ukrainian government to face all of these anti-corruption measures and finally to do them. And the last but not the least, I totally believe in strengthening the civil society and strengthening the local watchdogs and local investigators and local monitors and local journalists, local investigator journalists. That's why we are holding a big anti-corruption school, and me and Victor are the trainers in that school. So our IL Institute of Legislative Ideas, our NGO, is the main organizers of that school, and we're going to do that at permanent base to do the trainings on procurement, on ProZorro system, on new control system, on anti-corruption expertise, on communication with international partners, just how they should start to do their own investigations regarding the reconstruction process.